In the city of Lagos, there lived a young billionaire named Mr. Johnson. He was only 35 years old, handsome, and very successful. His life looked perfect from the outside: big companies, a fleet of expensive cars, and the mansion that sparkled like glass when the sun touched it. People in the city always said, "That man has everything." But what they didn't know was that Mr. Johnson was always sick. He visited hospitals often, and no doctor could truly explain what was wrong with him. His body was weak, and sometimes he would stay in bed for days, fighting pain that money could not cure. Mr. Johnson had a fiancée named Linda, a beautiful young woman from a wealthy family. Her father was a politician, and her mother owned several businesses. Mr. Johnson and Linda had been together for 3 years. They planned to marry before the year ended. Everyone said they were a perfect couple, two rich families joining together. But unlike her fiancé, Linda cared more about class, parties, and appearances. She loved Mr. Johnson, but not deeply. What she loved most was the attention that came with being his fiancé, the fame, the photos, and the life of luxury. In that same big mansion, there worked a humble young maid named Kendra. She was an orphan who grew up in an orphanage home. Life had never been kind to her, but she had one gift: a good heart. When she became old enough to work, she saw a notice outside a large gate that read, "Housemaid wanted, apply within." That was how she found herself working in Mr. Johnson's house. Every morning, before the sun even rose, Kendra would sweep the long hallways, wash clothes, and prepare breakfast. She worked quietly and carefully, always trying to please her boss. She was not lazy. She never complained. Sometimes, when Mr. Johnson saw her cleaning late into the night, he would say kindly, "Kendra, you work too hard. Go and rest." And she would smile shyly and reply, "Thank you, sir, but I'm almost done." Mr. Johnson liked her. He often gave her money before the month ended, saying she deserved it for her hard work. Linda, his fiancée, didn't care much about the maid. She often ignored her, sometimes even mocked her simple dressing and rough hands. But life has a way of changing things, and very soon, everything in that mansion was about to turn upside down. It was a bright Monday morning. The air outside Mr. Johnson's mansion was filled with the sound of birds and the humming of cars on the far road. The housemaid, Kendra, had already finished cleaning the wide marble floor and was preparing breakfast in the big kitchen. Mr. Johnson, dressed in a fine Italian suit, came downstairs looking calm and strong. He greeted her softly. "Good morning, Kendra." She bowed her head slightly. "Good morning, sir. Your breakfast is ready." He smiled weakly, took a few bites, and then left for work with his driver. To everyone, it was just another ordinary day. But fate had other plans. By noon, his personal assistant rushed into his office, shouting in panic. Mr. Johnson had suddenly collapsed during a board meeting. His workers screamed and hurried to carry him to the car. Within minutes, he was rushed to Gracefield Hospital, one of the best in the city. When Kendra got the news that evening, her heart almost stopped. She ran to the hospital immediately, her hands trembling. She found him lying weak on the hospital bed, with tubes connected to his arm. His skin looked pale, and his voice was faint when he spoke. "Sir, please don't talk," Kendra said, her eyes filled with tears. "You'll be fine." The doctor entered the ward holding a brown folder. He sighed deeply before speaking. "Mr. Johnson," he said slowly, "we ran several tests, and the results show that your kidneys are failing. You'll need a kidney transplant soon, or your life may be in danger." Mr. Johnson felt like the world stopped moving. His mind went blank. He had faced business losses before, but this was different. This was his own life slipping away. The doctor continued, "The good news is that with money and time we can find a donor, but it has to be a perfect match." Mr. Johnson nodded weakly, unable to say a word. As the doctor left, he turned to the window and whispered, "So this is how my story might end." The next few weeks were full of pain and silence. The once strong billionaire was now weak and bedridden. The machines in his hospital room beeped every few seconds, reminding him of how fragile life could be. His fiancée, Linda, visited a few times at first. She came wearing her high heels and carrying designer handbags. She would sit for 10 minutes, scroll through her phone, and then stand up. "Baby, I have to go now," she would say sweetly. "I'll come tomorrow." But tomorrow never came. Soon her visits became once a week, then once in 2 weeks, then nothing. When Mr. Johnson called her, she would sound distant. "I'm in a meeting," she would say. Or, "You know I can't stand hospitals. The smell makes me sick." Rumors began to spread that Linda was now getting close to a man at her office, one of Mr. Johnson's business partners. People whispered about it, but no one dared to tell him directly. Meanwhile, Kendra stayed by her boss's side every day. She moved from the mansion to the hospital just to take care of him. She cleaned his room, changed his bedsheets, and helped him eat. Sometimes she would sit by his bedside late at night, praying silently. "God, please don't let him die. Please keep him alive." Mr. Johnson often cried when he thought she wasn't looking. One night, when he couldn't hold it anymore, he said, "Kendra, my money can't save me. I've built houses, I've helped people, but now, no one can help me." Kendra took his hand gently and said, "Sir, God is watching. You've been good to many people. You will not die." Her words were simple, but they carried warmth that healed his heart, even when his body was failing. By the 4th month, things had gotten worse. Mr. Johnson could barely walk, and the dialysis machine had become his only lifeline. Each beep from the monitor sounded like a ticking clock, reminding everyone that time was running out. His hospital room was always full, not of joy but of worry. Every day, different people came to the hospital gate claiming they were ready to donate a kidney. Some came with tears, others came with desperation in their eyes. They had heard that the Johnson family was willing to pay 50 million naira to anyone whose kidney matched the billionaire's. 50 million naira. The news spread like wildfire across the city. Even poor villagers began traveling to the city hospital, hoping their luck would shine. Some said it would change their life forever, others simply wanted to help. The hospital reception was always crowded, people queuing under the hot sun, filling forms, giving blood samples, and praying that theirs would be the one. But none matched. Day after day, the doctors would shake their heads sadly. The results always came back negative. Each time a donor was rejected, hope dimmed a little more. The billionaire's wife had stopped smiling completely. His son Daniel, who used to be proud and confident, now sat quietly in a corner, staring into space. Even the nurses had grown used to the heavy silence that filled the ward. Kendra, the poor maid, watched everything with pain in her heart. Every time she brought in his food or cleaned the room, she would see the once strong man lying helpless on the hospital bed, thin, pale, and weak. One afternoon, as she wiped his face with a wet towel, she saw tears roll down his cheeks. "Sir," she whispered softly, "don't give up. God will send help." Mr. Johnson looked at her weakly and tried to smile. "Kendra, I don't think I have much time left," he said faintly. "I have everything money can buy, but right now, I would give it all just to live a little longer." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please don't say that, sir. You will live. You will." That night, after everyone had gone home, Kendra sat outside the hospital, thinking. The thought that no one matched him troubled her deeply. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. Something in her heart whispered that maybe she was meant to help, that maybe she was the one. One afternoon, Kendra went to the doctor quietly. Her eyes were red from crying. "Doctor," she said, "please test me. I want to see if my kidney can match Mr. Johnson's." The doctor looked shocked. "You? You're just a maid. Do you understand what this means? You could risk your life." Kendra nodded slowly. "Yes, I know. But he gave me a job when I had no one. If I can help him live, then I'll do it. The doctor agreed to run the test. The next day, when he opened the result, his eyes widened in surprise. It was a perfect match. He walked quickly to Mr. Johnson's ward. "Sir," he said with a bright face, "we found a match." Mr. Johnson sat up, his weak body trembling. "Who?" The doctor smiled gently. "Your housemaid, Kendra." For a long moment, Mr. Johnson didn't say a word. His eyes filled with tears. When Kendra entered the room, he looked at her and whispered, "Why would you do this for me? If my kidney can keep you alive, then I'm happy to give it." That night, Mr. Johnson couldn't sleep. No amount of wealth had ever moved him as deeply as this act of kindness from a poor girl who had nothing to gain. The hospital prepared for the operation. Mr. Johnson's family members prayed all night. Some couldn't believe that a maid would risk her life for her boss. When morning came, Kendra and Mr. Johnson were both wheeled into the operating room. The bright lights shone above them as the doctors began the 14-hour surgery. Outside, everyone waited. Time moved slowly. Finally, the doors opened, and the head surgeon came out smiling. "The operation was successful," he said. Mr. Johnson's mother burst into tears. "Thank God, thank God." Both Kendra and Mr. Johnson were moved into the same ward to recover. They were weak, but alive. Every morning, he would turn his head toward her bed and whisper, "Thank you, Kendra. You gave me life." And she would smile faintly, whispering, "God did it, sir, not me." 3 weeks later, they were both discharged. Mr. Johnson looked stronger. His face had color again. The once lonely mansion now felt different. It felt like a home. Kendra returned with him, not as just a maid, but as the person who had saved his life. His family visited often, bringing gifts and blessings for Kendra. Even the neighbors respected her now. Meanwhile, Linda, his ex-fiancée, had moved on with her new man. But when she heard that Mr. Johnson was alive and healthy again, she was shocked. She tried calling him, sending messages, even visiting his office, but Mr. Johnson ignored them all. His heart had changed. The man who once valued luxury now valued loyalty, and every time he looked at Kendra, he saw kindness, the kind that money could never buy. One evening, Mr. Johnson called Kendra into the living room. "Kendra," he said softly, "get dressed. We're going out tonight." Kendra was confused but obeyed. She wore a simple but beautiful gown, one he'd bought for her a few weeks earlier. When the car stopped, she looked out and saw a hall filled with people. Inside were Mr. Johnson's family members, friends, and business partners. Cameras flashed, and music played softly. Kendra was nervous. "Sir, what's going on?" she whispered. Mr. Johnson smiled. He held her hand, walked to the center of the hall, and then went down on one knee. "Kendra," he began, his voice steady but emotional, "you came into my life as a maid, quiet, humble, and hard-working. You cared for me when I had no strength. You gave me life when I had lost hope. When everyone turned their backs, you stayed. You showed me what love, loyalty, and kindness truly mean." Tears began to fill Kendra's eyes. Mr. Johnson reached into his pocket, brought out a small silver ring, and continued, "Kendra, will you marry me?" The room went still again. No sound, no movement, only the gentle sound of Kendra's breath. Her eyes widened, her hands trembling as she covered her mouth. "Sir," she whispered softly, tears now running down her cheeks. I don't know what to say." Mr. Johnson smiled flatly as she waited from love. The crowd erupted into loud cheers and clapping. Music returned, filling the hall with joy. Mr. Johnson's mother rushed forward, hugged Kendra tightly, and said through tears, "You are our daughter now. You saved my son, and now you've won our hearts." Cameras flashed from every direction. Some guests were crying, others were smiling with admiration. That night, Kendra, the girl who once had no family name, became the most talked about woman in the city. When the news reached Linda, Mr. Johnson's ex-fiancée, She sat alone in her apartment, reading the headlines on her phone. Billionaire Johnson proposes to the maid who saved his life. Her heart sank. Tears rolled down her face as memories of the past flooded her mind. The man she once had, the love she had thrown away for pride and wealth. She whispered to herself, "I lost him. I lost everything." But fate had already written its story. A few months later, Mr. Johnson and Kendra's wedding became the talk of the town. Their union wasn't just about love, it was about kindness, sacrifice, and destiny. And as Kendra stood beside her husband that day, dressed in white, she remembered where she started, a poor orphan girl who had nothing. Now, she had everything that truly mattered: love, peace, and a family. The story of Kendra and Mr. Johnson became a living lesson that goodness never goes unrewarded, and true love can rise from the most unexpected places.